So yeah, we can look at um, good old ETH because I think ETH. I mean, I think I've been pretty vocal about it, but I think ETH is really an interesting spot because, well, I guess let's just do like a top-down analysis of ETH, right?
Yep.
That's what we did, which I find it really interesting how they're both in very similar structures to me. Um, let's turn these off. And like you can make the argument for both of these being in these kind of megaphone structures. So again, we have our 1080. We're grinding up. This was our 1390, right?
Yep.
That's similar to your 19.6 weekly low.
Yep.
Ripped it, and well, it wasn't such a clean distribution like BTC. We eventually came down. We touched the bottom of the channel, which is the 200-day moving average, and also the 61.8 of this to this. Still kicking myself for not buying this because I thought BTC was going to go lower because ETH BTC was in such a weak position. That's besides the point. Learn from your mistakes, but this was insanely clean. Um, and we did a similar move that Bitcoin did,
Yep.
right? In terms of like rocketing off the bottom. Um, we didn't really take out these highs. And while Bitcoin came up to like hit the fresh highs
Yearly
up
high.
here,
Yep.
it didn't. ETH did not. And if history is similar to what it has done in the past, my thinking is that BTC could consolidate, and ETH has yet to do its final impulse to come up and really test, let's call it this supply zone, right? I don't know
Yep.
if you can argue this is a bull flag, but this is very clean to me. And if we look at where demand is, like this is a POB, okay? This is a point of breakdown. This is almost like an inverse head and shoulders. And we rocketed back through this zone that was basically where sellers were. We tested it here, we tested it here. To me, this is the quarterly open. They were liquidity pockets that we just identified a week ago and said we like 1810 to 1820. Zoran last stream said, look, identify your levels. If that's where you want to bid, take no emotion into the equation. Understand that price came into them, and like if that's where you think it's going to rebound, then just do it. So I am long from here right now, thinking that there's a big catch up trade on ETH, and this is potentially a bull flag, and we're going to see the move that BTC did on ETH. I don't know what it's going to do to drive it, but we can look at liquidity and why, but that we can also look at like ETH BTC. To me, everyone's so bearish on this. I mean, we've kind of identified 0.059 as like a level, like this is your deviation. You're coming back into here. Like, how close do you want to get it? Maybe get a swipe down here. But even just like a move back up to like this, right,
Yep.
could be explosive enough for ETH to take a lot of the topside liquidity that is still resting there. And we can look at the actual like spaceman levels on this before we look at the liquidity itself. But here we are, quarterly open. I think that it's probably like, we want to see it get back above the Monday low. Do I think it can like kind of dance around here a bit? Yeah. I think if you're like decidingly trading below 1800, then you're probably going to come into like this zone, and that would be on the heels of like BTC going to much lower levels that we talked about.
Exactly.
Um, and so if you look at the liquidity for ETH, and let's just look at the liquidation levels first because this helps identify stuff. Because we can look at the delta, which I think you can start to develop directional bias around the delta. 3.8 billion in shorts on ETH. Relative to notional amounts in the
This is pretty tame.
yeah, it is. But I think you probably have less market participation in the chop zone versus the impulses up, which we saw like trying to trade a delta around 25% move straight up was like, people were like, there's 20 billion, then 30 billion. After like 14 billion in longs on BTC, I was like, this is where you need to understand that this strategy does not work. The market was spot driven and it was on a mission for liquidity. So now we're back in range bound territory, chop, when this stuff maybe is going to become more relevant again. And so we have 80 longs to 293 shorts with 4 billion, almost 4 billion. And we hit this key lick at 1825 and took a little lower to where we were kind of waiting. Can it come down here to 1788, which was like kind of that like zone I was talking about on that diagonal? Sure. If we go look at the heat map now, this is really the most interesting thing to me. ETH liquidity has been a lot cleaner for me to analyze. So if we go to the 12-hour on ETH and we'll run that, and then we're going to look at the 7-day. You can see here, zoom in a little bit and pan. You can see here we just tapped it, right? This is your lower bound that I was kind of talking about, but you don't have a ton of fuel right here like you did with BTC. It's not as bright, but
Yep.
this is bright up here, 1884. I mean, you start hitting it at 1846. Can it come up and go to, almost 1900 again? Sure. Could it go all the way to 1930 and run into like 1940 and take out basically all the highs that are sitting there? Yeah. Is it likely? I don't know yet. I think you need to see things be reclaimed and some initiation by the buyers.
Got to take it level to level.
Yeah.
Hey, look at that yellow. Holy shit.
This is the most interesting thing to me, is you just ran a massive 7-day liquidity cluster. Like, this is why I said 1810 to 1820. 1805, like, maybe you dip in here a little bit, but like 1920, 1955, these numbers up here, like, what I actually think could happen, I don't know what's going to happen over the weekend or when, is you're going to start to see ETH BTC show some life potentially, and you'd get the explosive move into topside liquidity that ETH has kind of been waiting to do. That's like my trade plan. That's how I'm looking at the market. I don't know if it's going to be right, but like I have enough evidence to where like I want to believe in that idea and take that trade. So that's like a full analysis of BTC and ETH liquidity and the megaphone structure and high time frame and low time frame like liquidity pockets.